Hi there, fellow sea glass lovers. Thanks so much for joining me today. So if you joined me for my last video, you would have seen me create this small 8" by 8" Sailing in the Moonlight sea glass mosaic. So I love the moonlight theme. So in this video, I'm going to show you a variation on the theme with this sea glass mosaic. And in this one, I'm doing a lighthouse in the moonlight. So for this mosaic, I'm going to need a frame that holds an 8" by 8" glass. I have my pattern that has my lighthouse with the moonlight in the background and the details that I want. So I'll put my pattern behind the glass, and then I have the backing for the glass, which is got some tape here. I'll tape that into place so it stays to hold my pattern exactly where I want it to be. And now I can get started on my mosaic. Now for this, I'm going to need a nice piece of driftwood. It's like the lighthouse is sitting on a piece of driftwood. I'm going to need the brown sea glass. I'm going to make my lighthouse brown, and I'm also going to make the land that it's sitting on around the piece of driftwood brown. I need some white sea glass for my moon, and I need some green sea glass for my night sky. And I also want on this one to have a flag. So I've got a blue flag to go at the top of the lighthouse. I have an inukshuk. I've picked out the pieces for an inukshuk to sit, which is standing on top of the driftwood here. I've got some cool pieces. And then I need to get some pieces for the windows. So I picked out some white pieces for the windows, and I kind of went through my collection looking for pieces that to me kind of looked like windows. And then I also need to find a good square piece for the light in the lighthouse. Now, the other thing that I want to do here that's going to be a little bit different is I have some paint. I have a little bit of vermilion paint and a little bit of lemon yellow. Now these paints are watercolor paint. Just to add some interest is to do a little bit of painting on the back of the door and the 3 windows in the lighthouse. I'm going to put a tiny bit of this vermilion, which is kind of like an orangish red. And it's fun. I like to have fun with my sea glass. That's what it's all about. And just to add a little bit of color. This is where if you have some spectacular red pieces of sea glass or a spectacular yellow piece, you could use those here. And I do not have an abundance of these colors. Now I've got a little bit of water here and my paintbrush, and I'm just going to use this to color the backs of these with just the faintest little bit. That is not faint. One of the things I like about watercolor paints is you can make them really faint just by adding water. So I put a bit of pigment on there, but then I can use my water to dull it down. And this is where you would add a little, what I prefer to do is add a bit of color to the back of a piece of sea glass. And then when you let it dry, and when you flip it over, what you have is a tiny bit of hue shining through, but you still have the frostiness of the sea glass. If you put the paint on the top of your sea glass, it kind of takes away from the frostiness. So now I got the paint on the back of those pieces of sea glass, and I have to go away for a bit and let that dry really good before I come back. And then I can flip them over and glue them in place. Now, just one point I wanted to make. As I was working on this, I realized I had forgotten to clean my glass. Don't forget to clean your glass before you start. So I took everything off and cleaned the glass, and then I put it back in place. So now that paint is dry, and when I flip this over, it almost looks like that's like a reddish-orange sea glass, and this looks like a yellow sea glass. And it just adds some real interest to my lighthouse. Now, my attitude on painting sea glass is that it's fine because we're just having fun with sea glass, but don't tell people that that's red sea glass and yellow sea glass. Tell them it's white sea glass with paint on it, because we can't be faking it. Anyway, now it's time to start gluing. So what I'm using, my preferred glue of choice is the Quick Seal Adhesive Kitchen and Bath Adhesive Caulk. It is like a silicone caulking that really works well. And be sure to use one that's clear. It doesn't have to be Quick Seal as long as it's a silicone adhesive. There are other brands that work just as well. So I like to start with a big piece, like the piece of driftwood. So I'm going to squeeze some silicone on the back of this piece of driftwood, and for a large piece you need quite a bit. So I'm going to put a fairly generous bit of silicone on there, and I'm going to just set it in place exactly where I want it. And then I can glue everything else around it. Now for smaller pieces, I'm going to put just a little bit on. So a little bit of silicone, set that in place. Now this is the stage for this design. I would recommend you put any of your special pieces on first. And then you would glue your brown and your white and your green around it. So some other things you might want to add here, if you've got a few special pieces show well in relatively small sea glass mosaics because they don't get lost among the bigness of a large mosaic. So now for the brown. What I want to do now is fill in the lighthouse, and I'm just going to follow the lines along my pattern and fill in around leave the windows clear and go all the way up for the lighthouse. And I'm going to spend quite a bit of time searching through my sea glass pieces to make sure I get just the right pieces that fit. I want to have a nice lip at the top there and try to match that up. So I'll just spend quite a bit of time looking through my sea glass collection and trying to line up along the lines as I'm going. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is a mosaic, and what happens with a mosaic is the pieces are there, but then your eye fills in around where the pieces are, where all the blanks between the pieces are. So obviously the focal point for this piece is the lighthouse, but for me I just love the full moon. So I'm going to take my tray of white sea glass. I don't need too much, just enough to pick from, and I'm going to fill in the full moon. And for this I've got white, but my tray of white has really a combination of white and aqua and different shades of white, because my white sea glass comes from all sorts of different containers, so it tends to take on different hues of white as it's getting roughed around in the water and getting turned into sea glass. So I have a nice variety here of shades of white, but I am going to stick to small whites for this because I want as much texture as possible in my full moon. So it's all about the full moon. That's what this design is really featuring. So when you're filling in your full moon, be sure that you follow your pattern exactly along the line because your full moon is going to be round and you want it to stay round. All right, now it's time to create the night sky. So I'm using green to fill in the background. I'm going to fill in all around the full moon with green to create a night sky look. And you don't have to use green for this because not everybody has a lot of green. You can use anything dark. But the key is to create contrast between the darkness of the night sky and the lightness of the full moon. And it's going to give you that full moon effect as long as you go with green or brown or dark pebbles, something that's going to really make your full moon pop, because that's what this piece is all about. It's the full moon. You might notice too, as I was filling in the white here, I made a line of kind of aqua-colored sea glass going through there, because to me that reads like a bit of wispy cloud in front of the full moon. And be very careful here with following the line of the circle of the full moon to make sure that you don't lose that circular feeling. Now for just one little finishing touch, I'm thinking that something on top of my piece of driftwood might look good. So I picked out this interesting shell, and I'm just going to take some of my adhesive caulk, put a bunch on the back of that, and I'm going to glue that into place on top of my piece of driftwood. Sometimes you just need to stand back, take a look at your piece and say, is there anything that could add just a little bit of interest here? And I think that little shell sitting on the piece of driftwood just does the trick to finish this piece off. Now all the silicone in my sea glass mosaic has set, and I know nothing's going to move out of place if I flip this upside down. So I'm going to flip it upside down and remove the backing and the pattern. And then I'm going to take my silicone caulking and run a bead of caulking all the way around the outside. That's to hold the glass in place so it won't move. And then, once that has set, I'll be able to take this and hang it, because I have attached here, ooh, that's not coming out very good. I have attached the hanging hardware right here, and I have a couple of little pieces right here just to keep it from banging against the window, so then I can hang this. This is light enough that I can hang it on a cup hook in the window. Or if you want to, you can string something from the top of it to hang it. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and it gives you some ideas of how you can just take a little bit of your sea glass and be a bit inventive with it and create a beautiful little showcase for some of your special pieces of sea glass. And if you are interested in a pattern for this one, I'm going to post a pattern on my website that shows you 3 variations for this sea glass mosaic. I've got one sailing in the moonlight, one with the lighthouse in the moonlight, and one with the tree in the moonlight. So all 3 patterns are in the same pattern on my website, JackieTrimperSeaglass.com. So be sure to check that out. And until next time, I hope you make it out to the beach, and happy sea glass hunting.